I think we've got a clip from yesterday of your question, because the question to the Prime Minister at PMQs. Let's have a look.
Height of the lockdown restrictions in 2020, my constituent, who's worked for the NHS for over 30 years, was diagnosed with a tumour on her spine. Whilst in hospital undergoing painful surgery, her family obeyed the rules and didn't visit her. Mr. Speaker, in the last few minutes, a photo has emerged of the Prime Minister in Downing Street on the 15th of December 2020, surrounded by alcohol, food and people wearing tinsel. It looks a lot like one of the Christmas parties he told us never happened.
But in what he has just said, I'm afraid he is completely in error.
I'm sure lots of people, you have seen that picture in the last 24 hours or so. What do you think of the Prime Minister's response to that?
Well, I think it's quite typical. Instant denial, without actually knowing what the photograph was, when it was taken, who was there. You know, we were told that such parties had never taken place, then we were told he didn't know about them, then we were told they weren't parties at all, then we were told his staff organised them without his knowledge. I mean, you know, the most important point here, Darren, is that people all over Britain were obeying the rules on lockdown to protect their loved ones, to protect other people, to stop the virus from ramping up. And there's the Prime Minister who made those rules actually breaking them.
But in many ways, Downing Street was a workplace. Lots of people would look at that picture and think it's not necessarily a party. This was actually, we've known about this event before. It was a Zoom quiz, wasn't it? And so in that regard, it's quite difficult to work out whether actually this is something that may well have broken the rules. In fact, to the point where the Metropolitan Police, up until yesterday, had decided that it didn't meet the threshold for investigation.
Well, that's because they hadn't seen a photograph with somebody wearing tinsel and a huge bottle of champagne on the desk. You know, I would have thought that changes the view slightly, that it wasn't a party. And whether it was or not, we know that there are so many examples of the rules being broken.
No, but I mean, this is very specific, because this is a very specific picture.
It is.
You know, there are people who will have had Zoom parties over that Christmas period, who would have put Christmas decorations, I'm sure, on themselves, and may have had a drink as they did a Zoom party.
Yeah, but there weren't two other people there. There weren't two other people in the...
Well, yeah, but they were working alongside... I mean, of course, lots of people were not working in an office. That's clearly not the case in Downing Street. Downing Street is an example. I just come back to this point, is that are we at the point now where you're kind of just dragging everything up in just attempts to damage the Prime Minister?
We're all fed up with this, but the point remains that you have a man in charge of the government, the Prime Minister, who is bringing, as John Major said, and I didn't have a lot of time for John Major, but he made a very good point. This is damaging not only the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party, but the government and our system of governance. That's what really gets me. Most people out there, they're pretty fed up with the fact that the man who made the rules has broken the rules. That's the issue, when everybody else was suffering as a result, including my constituent. But more importantly, all politicians, Parliament, government, is all being dragged down by this man. And that's the shocking and appalling thing. That's what's unacceptable. People have to trust their politicians, the people they elect, and they have to trust their government. People no longer do.